welcome to the latest edition of the Campaign Doctor. I read this book, Uncharted, How Trump Bet Biden, Harris and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History by Chris Whipple, who I think is one of the finest and best political journalists and authors around. In fact, I also read his earlier book, The Gatekeepers, which is about the chief of staffs in the White House. Now, in Uncharted, he describes a behind-the-scenes look at the, of course, US presidential election. And based on the book, when reading the book, I would like to share some takeaways with you for me as a political consultant reading the book. Number one, during the primaries, DeSantis really didn't fight. Trump fought him, but he didn't fight. And you can't win an election by tiptoeing around your main opponent. After that disastrous debate, Joe Biden and his team were really in denial. And who knows what would have happened or could have happened if they had reacted in a more aggressive and more realistic way. One thing that Harris did really well is to consolidate her hold on the nomination after Joe Biden dropped out. In fact, he describes, within a couple of days, she made more than 100 phone calls to opinion leaders in the Democratic Party, and I think she did a really good job at it. Now, a less good job was during the campaign when Trump's team launched a barrage of negative ads, they, them, and Whipple describes in the book that the Harris team tested various answers, but then decided to more or less just pivot the way. And I think on a tactical level, that was a major mistake. As a result, you could say that Harris was pronounced swift-boated. On the other hand, I think what Trump's campaign did really well is seize opportunities like the garbage truck and turn it into visuals. It doesn't really matter what people talk about on television. What matters is what they see on television. They also did a rather strategic outreach to low propensity voters, which many of them are young men. And I had a video about this at the time when I said that, you know what, despite all the hype about women and young women, men also vote. And it's not that their votes would count less. Another really interesting point that Whipple points out is that during the final weeks of the campaign, Democrats were actually outspent on television because they poured a lot of their resources into their ground game, their get out the vote operation. And it confirmed to me what I've always been saying, that while TV advertising is less powerful than 20 years ago, it's still the ace of political communication. But on a strategic level and a basic level, there's of course one fundamental thing, and that is that Kamala Harris should have been changed, and she could have been changed, but decided to be status quo. And I think the unpopularity of Joe Biden's administration was just an albatross around her neck. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.